Okay, Drew Rebar, Auditing Reno 911, here with Michael with Father in Exile, and he's got his own channel, so make sure you go subscribe to him. And he and I met through the YouTube thing here. He's down in Las Vegas, I'm up in Reno, and we both experienced some of the same corruption in government. And it's going to let him tell his story. He's got an interesting story. He just went to the Supreme Court of the state of Nevada. He's got a bunch of federal lawsuits, and yeah, it goes a lot into my own story of how I came to be what I am. I spent 15 years in family court fighting that battle with corrupt government, trying to be a dad. And my story now, my kids are 26 and 22, and my kids love their mom and they love their dad. So that's a good ending to my story, and that's the hope that I think I got for everybody. So I'll go ahead and let Michael, start. Why don't you tell us your story? Tell us who you are. How did you come to be? How did you start your YouTube thing?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for everything that you're doing for Nevada, because it's very important. Not only do we have a corrupt government, but we have a media that is a huge problem. And so whether folks agree with you or not on specific issues, I think you're doing a huge service for our state by talking about these issues very publicly. So I very much appreciate it. So thank you, Drew. I was born and raised in Las Vegas. I went to Clark High School here in Las Vegas, served with the Army Reserves during my senior year. Then I went on to active duty with the Federal United States Army, and went around the world quite a bit, did a lot of cool things with them. After I got out of the military, I stayed traveling around the world, studying languages. I ended up coming back home roughly 2003, went to UNLV for a little bit, got into real estate, and then met my ex in 2007, 2008. We ended up having our first child together. He was born here in Las Vegas. And then we had the, of course, famous 2008 economic calamity. And so I was exploring options back then in terms of supporting myself, supporting my child, and ended up taking a job in between San Jose and San Francisco at Moffett Field with an Air Force Special Forces unit that was in the California Air National Guard. And so the rationale for that is my ex was from the Bay Area. And so this was going to be 2 years of training that I would have to do with this unit before I could settle down in the Bay Area, and I'd be all over the West Coast doing this training. And so since she was from there and her family was from there, we decided to relocate from Las Vegas up to San Jose so that she would have a support system in place while I was doing the training. So I didn't realize at the time, unfortunately, that the National Guard is nothing like the real military. It is much more akin to the mafia. That is a whole separate issue that we can talk about. And in fact, let me just say this at this point. We're obviously going to talk a lot today about family court and due process problems in family court. But my point of view is this is not my first rodeo with the government. Like, this is just how they always behave. And so while I was with the National Guard, I ended up catching them kicking out thousands of members without benefits. Now, these are people that never had any prior, like, they joined the Guard to be in the Guard. And so they were not coming from prior active duty like I was. So they didn't automatically have veterans benefits and things like that. And so they joined the Guard to be in the Guard. You know, they were told 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. And they ended up getting deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. They would get hurt. And then the California National Guard, when they got home, instead of taking care of them, kicked them out and didn't follow any of the processes to protect these people. And so I'll just end that by saying that in 2015, I got 2 news stories published with NBC Bay Area, the investigative unit. They were very good stories, so anybody can Google them. Just my name, Michael Sternberg, California National Guard, line of duty. One is a California specific story. The other one is a national news story. But of course, there's a huge scandal, but there was never really any kind of accountability from that. And, you know, we can talk more about that later, but I only mention it because this is just how our government normally behaves. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the military or the IRS or the Veterans Administration or the city of Las Vegas or Washoe County. It doesn't matter. It's always like this because there's no accountability. We don't really have a very good system of checks and balances, despite what anybody says. So at any rate, while all this drama was going on with the guard, and I was ferreting this out, and I was seeing what I was seeing and not liking it, and using public records laws and my own access to information to expose it. While that was going on, my ex and I split up. And we had, thankfully, again, because I was prior service, I had the Veterans Administration as a benefit, and they very graciously gave us a private, not somebody in the VA, a private licensed and marriage family therapist to help us try to repair our relationship. And then when we decided that it was not going to be repairable, we had this person to help us negotiate private deals for me moving out of the house and what the custody arrangement would look like. And we both agreed that it was not in the best interest of the kids, because at that point we had our second child. It was not in their best interest to be going through a court battle on this stuff. And we had this resource, so let's use this resource and hash out agreements. And so we did all that. And this was in 2012. So we have the agreements. I move out of the house. As soon as I move out of the house, she starts withholding the kids and surreptitiously files a child custody case in San Jose, California, in Santa Clara County, California. And so she walks into our next session with this LMFT and says, you know, I've filed this lawsuit. And then so I said, I guess we're done here, because now I got to go get a lawyer. So I stand up to walk away, and she's totally shocked and surprised and be like, well, we have to finalize deals and stuff like that. And I said, no, you just ended that. I got to go get a lawyer now. And so I walked out and had to go get a lawyer, and we had to file an emergency ex parte in order so that I could see the kids, because she was already reneging on our private deals in terms of the custody arrangements. So we have an emergency hearing. This low level, like not even a district judge, but like a commissioner that they have, makes some temporary orders. And then I instruct my lawyer to immediately start firing off discovery, because she's wealthy. My ex is wealthy. Her family was on the ground floor of Apple and Intel, and she was clearly using the courts as a weapon. So I started, using discovery to start getting at who was paying her legal bills, who was paying her living expenses, all this other stuff. And that scared her. That spooked her big time, because now not only was her information getting handed over to me, but her parents' information was getting handed over to me. So then we right away started talking again about private deals, because I told her, I said, look, if you're going to use the court as a weapon, I have no choice but to defend myself using the court's tools. And so I don't want to do that. That's not good for our children, because I'm going to end up destroying you. And so we made an agreement. Okay, yeah, you're right. Let's get out of this. Let's go back the way things were. And so we made, like, within 3 months of the case being filed, we agreed to dismiss the case. So we executed a dismissal. We never had a trial. We barely had any of the discovery done, right? We had one set of temporary orders, and we executed dismissal. And then our attorneys turned into like the most inept, ridiculous losers you can possibly imagine. Like, they could not accomplish this dismissal. So my ex and I started working together to hammer the attorneys to like get this dismissal done. So then they finally get the dismissal done. It's filed. I'm told it's filed. And then we thought the case had been dismissed. And we parented ever since. So this was 2013, is like January 2013. We thought this case was definitely done. And so we started parenting as if the court was never around. And we worked it out. And we didn't always agree, but we worked it out. And, we went from 2013 to 2015 is when I got out of the California National Guard. And then at that point, my kids were old enough, and the school that they go to was right by her house. I told her and them, I said, listen, it's very hard for me to survive here in the Bay Area. It's very expensive to live there. I'm going to go back home to Las Vegas, but I will just come back and forth to be with the kids. And so that's what we did. Either I went there every month, or they came here, or I went and got them and brought them back here for Christmas. And again, it all worked pretty well. They had the best of both worlds. They had their mother and they had their father, and we got along. And so then she proposed in 2017. She said, "Look, I want to get out of San Jose. It's too crazy. I would love to move to South Lake Tahoe." And because her family also had property there, so it was a very easy thing for them to do. And I was like supportive of it. I was indifferent because number one, it would be an enriching experience for the kids, but number two, I'm traveling anyway. So whether I travel to San Jose or whether I travel to say South Lake Tahoe, I mean, it's a little less convenient, but not such a big deal. And so I was supportive of it. So she relocated with the kids to South Lake Tahoe. I went back and forth. Same thing. The kids went back and forth. You know, we worked it out. And then in 2017, I think it was, she calls me up right before the summer because we were, every summer we worked out how we were going to break that up. And she tells me that she got a DUI with the kids in the car, 2.5 times the legal limit. And she was arrested and the kids were taken and CPS is involved. And apparently this had happened like not the day before, but quite a while before, she told me. And CPS told her, if you don't tell him, we are going to call him. Now, I was already very familiar with what a catastrophe CPS is. Do you know about the right to lie case?
No, I hadn't heard that one.
Okay, well, I have up on my YouTube channel, I have a bunch of cases from the US Ninth Circuit. That's our federal appellate circuit. And what I do is I go into the archives and I find cases about immunity and about government malfeasance and stuff like that, and where immunity was lost. I try to focus on where immunity was lost. And I go into the archives, I do a lot of research, I find these cases, I get the written opinions, I post them up on my YouTube channel, and they're very popular. And a lot of my followers have already told me that those videos help them extremely with their own litigation. And so I'm very happy to hear that they're being used. Well, one of the cases that's up there is titled something like Gangsta CPS Demands the Right to Lie to Seize Children. And yep. And so I recommend everybody go on my channel to search for that and find it. And this lawyer who's being paid, of course, a ton of money by a municipality in California is literally arguing that CPS should have the right to lie in order to seize children. And of course, thankfully, despite the problems that are going on at the US Ninth Circuit, which we might talk about later, they were aghast at that suggestion. Of course, the government did not prevail in that case. So I was already aware of stuff like that. There's a lawyer named Sean McMillan, I think his name is. He specializes in CPS cases in California in terms of suing them under federal civil rights laws. And and he posts the video depositions, by the way. He when he deposes these government losers, he posts them up on YouTube. And so I was already very much aware of what a catastrophe CPS was, and I didn't want them at all involved with my children. So they, of course, call me and they want to start interrogating me and asking me questions about the well-being of my children. And I said, it's not your concern, get out of it. And they said, well, it is our concern. We have to watch out. I said, no, I have this situation under control. My ex and I will work it out. And so they disappeared, and my ex and I discussed it for the whole summer. And we agreed that she was going to go to inpatient rehab in Utah for the alcohol. The children would stay in Las Vegas with me because they were going to be with me for the summer. So they would stay with me in Las Vegas, and they were now permanently relocating back to Las Vegas. Remember, my oldest son was born here. They would go to school here. I would have primary custody. My ex would finish her inpatient rehab, and then she would deal with her criminal case from the DUI in South Lake Tahoe. And when all was said and done, she would relocate back to Las Vegas, and we would go back to a more equal custody arrangement. So that was the whole plan. So she does the kids. What's that?
It took care of the kids.
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
the goal. Yeah.
Not only to take care of the kids, but allowed her to focus on getting her mind right with alcohol and also dealing with the consequences of the DUI. So it was in everybody's best interest, right? And of course, it was in my best interest because I got more time with my children. So she, and of course, I have all this in writing. So she finishes rehab, goes back to South Lake Tahoe, starts the process of coming back and forth between Las Vegas to see the kids and South Lake Tahoe to deal with her court stuff. And so they start school, of course, in August, right, of 2017. And sometime by, was it 2017 or 2018? I might be mixing these years up. I'm sorry, I'm dealing with a lot of details. But bottom line, they start school in August. In December, she apparently finds out what her plea deal is going to be. And of course, it's a sweetheart plea deal, right? And so she starts sending me texts saying, hey, I really regret my decision that the boys could live in Las Vegas for, permanently. I'd like to discuss changing that agreement. And I said simply, I can't support that. You got a DUI with the kids in the car, 2.5 times the legal limit. I cannot agree that didn't happen and that these kids are going to be okay in some other state where I'm not there to keep an eye on things on a regular, more than I already was. And so that was it. It was one attempt on her part and one answer on my part. Well, apparently she immediately started looking for family lawyers in California. And I didn't know this until way later when I got her financial records and discovery, and I could see the credit card bills, for these consultations that she was getting. So
That must have, yeah, I know that feeling.
So, she has Christmas with the kids, or her portion of Christmas with the kids. They come back, they're doing great at school. By the way, like, not only, this wasn't like, this was a well thought out and planned discussion. Because at the time I was living in one of my real estate investments, which was not in a great part of town. This was right before the boys moved back in with me full time, right? And so I could have moved them into that same situation, but again, we discussed it, she and I, and that was not in their best interest. So I went and rented a house in a better neighborhood so that they could go to a good school, a school that we chose together. They got into the gifted program. We have a program here called GATE, and both of them tested into the gifted program. They had extracurriculars, all kinds of stuff that they were really involved in that they loved doing. So this was really an enriching school year for them. That was another reason I was not on board with this idea of suddenly yanking them from that. And of course, half their family is here, right? Their extended family. So anyway, in March of that school year, she ends up hiring this scumbag California attorney named Tristan Eshelman, who I'm now suing in federal court. Talk about that in a minute.
Let me look up Tristan here so we can.
Thank you.
AES. Yeah. TRISTA. EN, you said Tristan?
Yeah, Tristan. AESCHLEMAN.
There, Tristan, the man part came up. So this is, let me share that screen up here if I can. Share screen. Share, there we go. That person right there, Tristan.
That looks right. Yeah, it's kind of small on my screen, but yeah, that's his law firm.
Adams Ash LLP.
Yep.
So that's where they're over at Almeida Suite number 308. There's all their public information there.
Now you see that logo right there at go down a little bit. You see the logo with the S and the C?
Right here. Santa Clara County Bar Association.
That's right. So they are defendants, and we'll get into this in a little bit, but they're defendants in my federal civil rights lawsuits too. They and Sherry Diamond, who's the CEO, we call her Sherry the Shredder. And the reason we call it Sherry the Shredder is because the local Superior Court, the Santa Clara County Superior Court.
Sherry Diamond, SHERRY.
Diamond. Yeah. The local court there, which is where my family court case is.
Is that her right there?
No, that doesn't look like her. You're going to search Sherry Diamond, Santa Clara, probably.
There's LinkedIn. Here's her LinkedIn. See what that shows us.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Sherry, how you doing?
Yeah. So this is we have to take this side trip because this is fascinating. So the court rules in Santa Clara at that time had a process under the local rules, the general rules, for filing complaints for bias against judges, attorneys, and court staff. And it specifically says that the Santa Clara County Bar Association is a partner of the court and manages this process, right? So I reach out to Sherry Diamond and I say, hey, the court rules talk about this process for filing complaints, and your organization's listed there. Do you have any rules or anything that govern this process? And she goes, yeah. And she sends me the rules. So then I fire off a complaint to her following the rules that she herself sent me. Well, and this had to do with Tristan Ashelman being a total fraud. Like he routinely goes and does ex parte communications with these judges and gets ex parte orders. And one time he filed a different version of a motion than he served on me. And the only reason I know that is because he's an idiot and he accidentally clicked the box to have the filing system serve me. So I compared what the filing system sent me versus what he actually served me. So anyway, I filed this complaint and apparently she shredded it. That's him, that's Tristan. And the only reason I know that she shredded it is because when I later filed a complaint to the State Bar of California, Sherry straight up told him that she shredded the complaint. So her rationale was that we don't have jurisdiction over complaints. And I told him that, and so I just shredded it. Well, no, you not only do you have jurisdiction, but you sent me the rules yourself on how I'm supposed to file this complaint. So this is just like one tiny detail of the level of absurdity that we are going to talk about in a little bit here. But so that guy, Tristan, she hires him in March during the school year, does not tell me. And the only reason I know that is because she admitted later on in a deposition that she hired him in March. So in March of the school year, she was already plotting, right? Didn't say anything to me. Then the summertime comes up and we have to make our typical agreement about how we're going to split up the summer. So we make an agreement about how we're going to split up the summer. She does not tell me that she's hired this dirtbag, right? She doesn't tell me anything about what she's plotting. Of course, I want a written agreement because there's no way I would let these kids out of Nevada without a written agreement. So I have the written agreement, right? So she takes the kids and takes them to California for her time, takes them to visit their grandparents in San Jose. They all go to Hawaii together, right? And the agreement says that on July 7th, 2019, she's going to return the kids to Las Vegas and I'm going to pick them up at the airport. So on July 5th, I haven't heard anything yet. So I said, hey, I need flight information so I know when to be at the airport. And I emailed her or texted her that. And I don't get a response. So then the next day I do whatever I didn't do the first day, which was like if I texted the first day, then the second day I emailed. I don't remember which one was which. But so then I emailed, still no response. So July 7th, the day that the children are due back, I get an email from that kidnapper, Tristan Ashelman, saying, hey, Shelly's hired me. I'm a family lawyer in California. I am aware that you have agreements with her, but we're going to go ahead and renege on those. And we're going to withhold your children until you change the agreement or until a court orders us otherwise. Oh, and you remember that case in San Jose? We're going to revive that case. So I immediately go and find an attorney here in Las Vegas. We file an emergency custody case here in Las Vegas. It goes before Judge Rhonda Forsberg. We get Shelly, my ex, served. She hires an attorney here. And they immediately start defending the lawsuit on the grounds that Las Vegas does not have jurisdiction, that Santa Clara County, California has continuing exclusive jurisdiction under the UCCJEA, which stands for the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act. So I'd like to put a pin here because this is an important point for our Nevada viewers. Uniform laws are laws that, most of the states have basically adopted, and they're supposed to be uniform across the states. And so this is one of them. It's called the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction Enforcement Act. Drew, I don't know if you know this, but we're suckers because that law is not uniform anymore. So for example, in California has changed that law to say that if somebody grabs their children and flees to California, to get a gender affirming care, the state of California will protect that parent from any actions that are coming as a result of that. So this law that is supposed to be uniform is in fact not uniform, which defeats the whole purpose of the law. And the purpose of the law, just to clarify for everyone, was to prevent these kinds of jurisdictional games across state lines. That was the whole reason why this law was passed. So my ex defends the case here and says, no, you don't have jurisdiction because there was already a family case in California and it has continuing exclusive jurisdiction. And so this idiot Rhonda Forsberg decides, oh yeah, even though Shelley has an apartment in Las Vegas and has already admitted to registering to vote here, which means she swore that this was her sole legal residence, I'm going to go ahead and entertain this jurisdictional challenge, right? Now, if anybody has any doubt, my 2 hearings from that case, from the child custody case here in Las Vegas, are up on my channel at Father in Exile. You can go watch and see exactly what happened. So Rhonda Forsberg decides to hold this jurisdictional conference. And in the beginning of the hearing, she actually tries to do the right thing and stand her ground and say, look, Shelley has an apartment here. She registered to vote here. The kids were here and going to school until she abducted them. Like, this is where jurisdiction should lie. And unfortunately, Judge Roberta Hayashi from Santa Clara, who was the judge calling in for this conference, she was a bully.
Roberta Hayashi?
Roberta Hayashi. She's very much a bully, and she's a stupid bully. And you can, again, watch the videos and judge for yourself. But she's like, no, we have this case. It was never properly dismissed. And that's her. And she starts admitting on the record to reading ex parte declarations from Shelley and Tristan. And she's like literally advocating on their behalf and making arguments as to why Santa Clara should have jurisdiction based on these ex parte declarations, which she admits they're ex parte, right? So at some point, Judge Forsberg gives up and just says, okay, fine, I'm going to cede jurisdiction, and cedes it to California. So now I got to start all over and challenge jurisdiction in California and have Hayashi acknowledge her mistake and cede jurisdiction back to Nevada, right? And so I hire a California attorney. We filed the motion to do that. And while that's pending, Tristan sends an ex parte letter in the mail to this judge, Roberta Hayashi, with a proposed finding and order after hearing for a non-existent hearing. Because the only hearing that occurred was the jurisdictional conference in Las Vegas. That was the only noticed hearing, was a hearing in the Nevada case. The fact that this judge participated in it is irrelevant because there were no noticed motions before her. So she can't make any findings or conclusions of law or findings of fact, right? So, but he writes his own order and sends it to her, makes his own findings of fact, his own conclusions of law, and sends it to her in the mail, and she signs it. And I've been dealing with that fraud ever since. So they've been just repeating that fraud over and over again. So they got jurisdiction on a fraud, and then after that, it was another fraud, another fraud, another fraud, all ex parte. And the short version of that is this: when I had my motion to cede jurisdiction back to Nevada before Hayashi, she says, well, now all of a sudden I care about due process and evidence. And so under Evidence Code 730 in the state of California, I want to appoint an outside person to investigate some of these evidentiary claims. And then I'll make a decision. Am I ceding jurisdiction back to Las Vegas, or am I ceding jurisdiction to South Lake Tahoe, since none of the parties live in San Jose? So she goes, you two need to agree on whoever is going to do this thing, right? So we make an agreement on who's going to do it. And as soon as I sign the agreement, then Judge Hayashi changes it. Instead of doing what I said we're going to do, now we're going to just do a full-blown custody evaluation as if the case were here, which is not something that I ever agreed to. But nevertheless,
why do you need a custody evaluation?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because she just spontaneously does whatever the hell she wants. So,
but I mean, that's my whole problem with the system, and what you deal with is what gave that judge a cause to go after that hearing that's basically against you?
The gist of the answering that question, yeah, exactly. The gist of answering that question is this: our government, whether it's family court or anything else, routinely behaves like this. These people are incompetent. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand due process. If they do understand due process, they don't care because they're conniving little scumbags who get off on the fact that there's no accountability, right? And so what was going on in her mind, I have no idea because I wasn't even there that day. Like, I sent my lawyer in with this signed agreement that this guy was going to do this move away investigation thing. And Tristan, my lawyer, who is Magdalena Chattopadhyay, good luck spelling that one, Drew.
You want her up there? Want to
Sure.
share who she is? Let's put her up there.
Magdalena.
Mag.
If you search Magdalena Law Group, that might be the easiest thing.
Oops, Magdalena. Magdalena Law Group, right there. There we go. Let me put them up there.
Yeah, that's her, Magdalena Chattopadhyay. So I'm lucky in the sense that I have a transcript from this hearing. And the reason I say that I'm lucky is because the court no longer has court reporters. They've had no court reporters for years, and they refuse to allow you to audio or video record, and they don't audio and video record. So it literally is now a total secret Star Chamber court.
There's no record.
There's no record at all. And in fact, Santa Clara, LA County, and another one got sued by two nonprofits in California recently on a writ petition at the California Supreme Court. And these nonprofits are like, hey, Supreme Court, we cannot represent our clients because there's no records for appeal. So we can't file an appeal. And
how do you run a government without records?
Exactly.
That's what government is. It's records.
Yep, exactly. And so, but I'm lucky that at that time there was a court reporter. And so I have those transcripts. And so it just basically shows the three of them, colluding to do this. And I can only guess that they knew that they were doing this in order to jack up legal fees, right? They don't say that in the record, but I can't think of another motivation other than just being totally stupid. But Magdalena, what she should have done at that time as my lawyer was she should have objected strongly and said, my client is not here. He does not know about this. I don't have the authority to agree to a change on his behalf. And instead of doing that, she went along with it. So that happens, and I didn't entirely figure out that happened until I was halfway through this process with this guy, Tim Rood. There's another one for you. So Tim Rood is the one that did the custody evaluation.
RUDE or
ROOD. Yeah, ROOD.
Imagine being that kid in school.
Yeah.
Attorney.
So
he's an attorney?
No, he's like an LMFT.
LMFT. Maybe. Sacramento, California.
Yep. So it's important to note that my ex, Shelly, came up with a list of 3 names. And that's him on the top left. So she came up with a list of 3 names, and I was, of course, trying to get somebody from Las Vegas to do this, but they wouldn't agree to it. And so I ended up agreeing to this guy. And, but again, he was supposed to do he was supposed to gather evidence based on the move away factors. So there's 2 cases in California, La Mouche, and I forget the other one, where the California Supreme Court talked about move away factors and evidence that has to be collected for that. And so Judge Hayashi's rationale was basically like, okay, I'm going to do whatever's in the best interest of the kids. This is what she said, right? Neither of the parties live here in Santa Clara. So I'm going to do this evidence code 730 evaluation with this dude to go out. Somebody says, check out Susan Bassey. Susan Bassey's done stories on me. so Judge Hayashi says, I'm going to have this dude go and gather evidence, like literally fly to Las Vegas, talk to the teachers, talk to the family, take a look at the living situation, all that, do the same thing in South Lake Tahoe. And based on his report, that's where I'm going to see jurisdiction, is either back to Las Vegas or over to South Lake Tahoe. So I'm participating in this process, and I have no idea in the beginning that this process has been switched to this like full-blown custody evaluation, right? And so I eventually, right when he generates his report, is when I start to figure this out. And of course, his report is totally devoid of the discussion that he was supposed to investigate, which was the move away factors. So then I get my hands on that transcript from the hearing several months prior where this nefarious stuff happened, and I figure out what happened. So I fire Magdalena, and I hire a new family lawyer called Gina Policastri.
Gina, let's put Gina up there.
Policastri. Yeah.
P-O-L-I
Castri.
T-R-I.
Lonick and Patton is the name of the law group.
There it is. I'm trying to do stuff with my glasses and I just can't see.
Oh, I'm getting there. So I know what you're talking about.
Let's go here. Let's see what we can show. That's not a good one. Let me put this up there just so everybody can see what I'm looking at.
Yep, that's Gina. So I hire her, and now the report that Tim Rude created is top secret in California, so I can't show it to anybody. But I do have a copy of it, at least. Unlike my family court file, which is also top secret, and they are refusing to give me, which is one of the reasons I've sued a bunch of California judges in my same lawsuit that's against Sherry the Shredder and several people at the State Bar of California and several counties, which we'll get into in a little bit. But so my family court file is top secret. They refuse to give it to me. But I do have this report from Tim Rude, and he found in my favor. So I won the custody evaluation, right? Still don't have my kids to this day, though. So I hired Gina Policastri.
So you win the custody evaluation and you don't get your kids.
Correct. Now, one important piece of information.
Think about this: you win, but you don't get to be with your kids.
Yes. And
how long has it been since you've seen your kids?
Over 4 years since my false arrest, which we're going to get to in a little bit here in the timeline.
This is just crazy.
Yeah. So I hired Gina.
Keep going.
Yeah, I hired Gina, and she starts going crazy with discovery and racks up over 150 grand in legal bills on discovery. Okay. And Tristan is able to thwart it with one simple, stupid motion saying, hey, this was all supposed to be done, by a certain date, and it wasn't done. And so Gina never disclosed to me that this deadline existed, right? She just went crazy asking for discovery, which based on the deadline date, she knew had no hope of going anywhere, and yet took $150,000 from me when I was desperate to get access to back to my kids, right? And to get this done with. So the reason why there was a deadline was apparently because there had been some trial dates selected. What are the issues for trial? I have no idea, because we were never supposed to have a trial. It was supposed to be this move away thing, and then she was going to cede jurisdiction to the appropriate jurisdiction, and we would have a trial there, right? And so I send Gina into court again, and now we have a new judge. Now it's Judge Hendrickson. Somebody says 150K WTF. This is a huge racket that's going on in Santa Clara County.
Oh, I can't tell you how much money I spent on mine. It's more than what you've said so far, and it's stupid. The racket that family law has that sucks money away from not only you and me, but just the kids in general. All this money could be going to our kids. These people suck it away.
It's a huge racket, and the numbers are much bigger in Santa Clara because that's Silicon Valley, right? Yeah. So the families have more wealth to steal. So anyway, I send Gina into a hearing. It's supposed to be a settlement conference hearing, and I sent her in with another agreement. Apparently, I still have not learned my lesson about sending lawyers into hearings without me being there, right? And so we have this new judge, Judge Cindy Hendrickson, who's taken over for Hayashi. I don't know why Hayashi left the bench. She left the family law bench and went over to the civil bench. And I don't know exactly why that happened, other than I heard rumors that she was pushed out because she's so vindictive and incompetent. So anyway, Cindy Hendrickson comes on. Cindy Hendrickson is a former prosecutor in Santa Clara. And once again, I'm not at this hearing. All this judge has to do is affirm the stupid agreement for an extension of time that I sent Gina in with. And instead of doing that, Hendrickson once again just changes the entire direction of the case and says that, yep, that's her, and says that she's going to seize my children. If I don't go forward with this trial, for which I have no discovery and for which we don't even know what the issues are, that she's going to seize my children for another entire school year. And again, Gina now, last time it was Magdalena, this time it's Gina Policastri. Instead of saying, my client is not present, he's not aware of this sudden change in the direction of the case, I am not authorized to make any agreements other than what he sent me in here with. Instead of doing any of that and instead of at any time saying the word objection, she just goes along with it. So the hearing ends, and this hearing was like in the summer of 2020. And then she calls me up, Gina calls me up, lies to me about what happened. I figure out that she lied to me and I fire her ass, right? Then I got to wrestle away the transcript from the court reporter so I can actually make sure I know exactly what's going on. That was a huge endeavor because of course they were hiding the transcript. And so I immediately file an emergency motion that summer and put it in front of Cindy Hendrickson. And I say, I don't know what the hell's going on in this court, but you guys keep doing things ex parte. You keep changing things without notice, right? And you're violating my rights and I demand that you stop. And she goes, no, I'm not going to do that. She denies the emergency motion. So then I take her up on a writ petition to the 6th District Court of Appeals in California. And of course, they summarily deny the writ petition. And thank you everybody for hanging on. I'm trying to make this as succinct as I can. Well, then Tristan starts doing some like really big, outrageous ex parte frauds again, right? Including even on the rare occasion where he does serve me, he served me the different version of the motion than what he filed with the court. And then I caught him on that. And so I file for contempt. And of course, Hendrickson is protecting him. So then I move to disqualify Hendrickson. And she strikes her own disqualification, which is illegal. So then I had to take that up to the California Supreme Court. And of course, they refused to intervene, right? And while all this is going on, Tristan does one more outrageous ex parte fraud and goes and gets a completely secret court order from Judge Kuhnle, that's Kuhnle, who's not even involved in my case.
Judge Kuhnle?
Right? Kuhnle, yeah, Santa Clara.
Judge Kuhnle,
I think.
MLE.
And as of November.
Ah, it fixed it for me. So let's pull this guy up here. This guy right here, Ballotpedia, Thomas.
Yep.
Thomas Kuhnle.
There's that loser right there. So this taxpayer defrauder, who's not even involved in my case, knows nothing about me or my children or anything, grants this secret order because Hendrickson was, I was taking her disqualification up to the Supreme Court. So she was stripped of jurisdiction and couldn't make any decisions while I was doing that, right? So this guy has no idea what's going on. He gets this ex parte request for emergency relief that has not been served on me. And this dirtbag strips me of all legal and physical custody of my children, totally ex parte.
For what cause?
There was no cause. That was in violation of court order, of other secret court orders, right? So,
So don't vote for this guy.
Yeah. So.
Well, 2030, he's in there till 2031.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll see, because I'm going to be taking his video deposition in
with no accountability.
my federal civil rights lawsuit, so he can answer questions about his behavior at his video depositions. So anyway, here's a good an important point to now bring up. This is all 2021, the summer of 2021. Remember, they were first abducted in 2019, right? Now, relocation of children without prior approval of a court or prior approval of the other parent is a felony in Nevada. It's NRS 200.359. So this entire 2 years that this is going on, I'm trying to get the Las Vegas police to do their jobs. They, of course, refuse to take a report, refuse to investigate. I have a whole playlist of their nefarious conduct up on my channel. Like, I was even challenging them at First Tuesday. So they do this thing every month called First Tuesday, where the local area commands like go out and meet with the community. And I'm like, hey, dirtbags, I've been trying to get you to investigate for 2 years, and you're telling me that this is a civil matter. Well, and you're gaslighting me about this statute, right, that you have up right now, Drew. I'm like, but I did a public records request, which is why everybody should be using public records laws, right? And I have your policy right here that says that you shall do an investigation and you shall take a report. So I was completely right that you're supposed to be doing that, and that this is not a civil matter, and you're refusing to investigate. And the captain I was challenging at this First Tuesday meeting said, "Oh, let's talk offline. I'll hook you up and make sure that that you talk to the right people." Which, of course, they never investigated. So they never investigated. The district attorney's investigators never investigated the kidnapping. The Nevada Attorney General, Aaron Ford, his agents refused for 2 years to investigate.
Yeah, they don't do anything over there, I don't think.
For 2 years, they refused. Okay. Then all of a sudden, in the summer of 2021, while I have my children for summer break, they show up on my doorstep with this secret court order that Judge Kunle signed. Right. And there's Ring doorbell footage of this up on my YouTube channel. I have 2 different uploads of it up on my YouTube channel. If you go to the Nevada Attorney General playlist, it's got hundreds of thousands of views. And they sit there for 10 minutes and admit, oh, yeah, you've been reporting that your kids were abducted for 2 years. Oh, yes, you've been reporting California corruption and due process violations for 2 years. That's not our problem. We want to know why you're violating the secret court order. And I told them at that time, you know, there was a, if Shelley wants to take that court order, that secret court order, and try to domesticate it, I will go plead my case in front of a Nevada judge. Otherwise, go pound sand. And if you're going to go get a warrant for my arrest, you better tell the judge everything you know about me, because otherwise it's a civil rights violation. So what happened? 2 or 3 weeks after that Ring doorbell footage, so if you go to playlists, and I should have a Nevada Attorney General playlist. I might have to get my glasses out. Yeah, on the bottom right there. Oh, yep, those two idiots right there, Dave Moreau and Gina
Can I help you?
Lovero.
Yeah, Michael?
Yes.
Hey, Michael. It's Dave Monroe and Gina. We're from the Attorney General's office.
Right.
Hey, can we talk to you?
What do you want to talk about?
Well, we want to talk about your case, man.
Are you here to do an investigation or what?
At this point, we're not involved, but we want to talk about the orders from California before we get involved. So.
Well, all I have to say is there's a rich documentary record of me reaching out to you guys. As you know, I also have a letter to the governor, which has gone unanswered, a letter to the sheriff, which has gone unanswered. Now, I got a call the other day from the investigator for the district attorney of El Dorado County, who also has been refusing to help for the last 2 years. And he told me that there's an order out of California. I have not been served with an order. Nobody has sent me an order. He did not supply me with a copy of an order. I have a writ petition right now in front of the 6th District Court of Appeals to disqualify
let's
the
pause
judge
it there.
in this case.
So I encourage everybody to go and watch that video. It's only about 10 minutes long, but so that's in early September of 2021, and so they're on my doorstep because of this secret order from Judge Kunle. So what happened is Tristan Ashelman, Shelley's family lawyer, went and got an totally ex parte order with no notice. Now, ex parte means different things in different jurisdictions, right? In that Superior Court in Santa Clara County, they still have to give notice. There are rules for that. They have to give notice. And in fact, they have to give notice before 10 a.m. for a judge to even look at the ex parte the next day. If they don't give notice before 10 a.m., let's say they give notice at 10:05 a.m., then the judge can't look at it for 2 days. So there's these very strict rules that you still have to give notice, even though you're asking for ex parte relief, right? So, but he doesn't do any of that. Tristan doesn't do any of that. He just goes and gets this totally secret order based off his prior ex parte frauds, right? Because just prior to this, he had done the thing where he served me a different motion than what he filed with the court, right? He gets this ex parte relief. He then hands it off to Rich Horn, who's the El Dorado County, California District Attorney investigator who'd been ignoring me for 2 years, right? Gives it to him. That guy, Rich Horn, Horn, that guy puts together a fake investigation, and then he and a district attorney named Brittany Griffith then go to an El Dorado County, California judge to get a warrant for my arrest for parental abduction. And they don't tell the judge my 2-year history with that office, which includes not only a bunch of emails of me giving them evidence and stuff like that, but on one of my visits with my kids in South Lake Tahoe, I actually found them at a conference in a hotel. They were doing a conference, like a district attorney's conference, and I found the investigators there and I cornered them and I said, why are you not investigating the abduction of my children from Las Vegas who are being harbored here in South Lake Tahoe? And they kept promising me they would look into it, and then they kept refusing to look into it. And this whole history, they did not disclose this to the judge. So this idiot judge in El Dorado signs off on a warrant for my arrest. Okay, what does that mean? It means jack squat in Nevada. California warrants have no authority in Nevada. But for one, we have one law in Nevada, which again is a uniform law, just like we were talking about earlier, the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act, which is not uniform anymore. Same thing, we have the Uniform Extradition Act, and that talks about the procedure for a state to arrest somebody that's wanted in a foreign jurisdiction. And what that says is you basically have two possibilities here. If you want to arrest somebody in Nevada on a for a foreign state, you either have to go get a warrant from the governor, which is like the same thing as trying to get a warrant from a judge. You have standards you have to meet. Or if you're a law enforcement agent, you may arrest somebody if you reasonably believe that they are being charged legally with a crime in a different jurisdiction that is a year or more in jail. Now, yeah. Now, I am challenging this law as unconstitutional in my federal civil rights lawsuit. We can talk more about that later. And when you show my Supreme Court comments, we can talk about that. But my argument is, if you are Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford's goons, Dave Monroe and Gina Lavero, and you're on my doorstep and you are admitting that you know about California corruption, and you are admitting that you know about due process violations, then you cannot reasonably believe that I was lawfully charged in California, right? So they get this warrant from this dirtbag in El Dorado County after he lies to the judge to get it. And then these two pieces of crap that are on the screen right now then orchestrate my false arrest in front of a school in Las Vegas. And so that's up on the playlist too. If people want to see that, you should show the first few minutes, like the first minute of that, because what they did, these two idiots right here recruited the Clark County School District Police to help pull me over at gunpoint. And
which one is that one?
It should be on the Attorney General playlist. And so you got to go to the playlist.
Right there.
Yeah, you should look for a body cam. By the way, that second from the top, third from the top. That's all undercover video I took at Aaron Ford's office. It's very enlightening. I recommend people watching that. Scroll down there. There you go. There's the body cam right there. Okay, so those two idiots orchestrated. They recruited Clark County School District Police, and then this combined team of miscreants thought it was a great idea to pull me over in front of a school as it was getting out at gunpoint. So not only did they endanger me, they endangered all my children, and everybody else's children as the school was getting out. So go ahead and just play it. You can play it, a minute or two of that.
You're right there. Hands out of the window, guns.
Yep. That fence is a school. That's a school right there. And kids are literally walking down the street, and there are school buses around outside of the field of view of the camera. But as the camera moves, you can see it later. So CCSD does not have these police department. This is a CCSD. So CCSD is Clark County School District Police. This dude that has his gun pointed at me does not even have a warrant for my arrest in Nevada. He doesn't know anything. He's just doing what Attorney General agents told him to do. So he's being sued. His department's being sued. His boss is being sued. But this is like amazing. And so in this video, you can hear later on, after they've got me locked up and everything, the Attorney General agents talking about how they've been coordinating with Tristan, Shelley's lawyer, for all this, right? And so this is going to be very explosive when I get to video depositions of all these guys and how they all collaborated. So this is the last time I saw my children. They were taken out of the back of the car.
Right here.
Yep. Shelley was already ready to get them. She had flown into town. This was all orchestrated between her and the Nevada Attorney General agents. That's Dave Monroe right there, the same guy that was on my doorstep. Right. And so this was all orchestrated by them. They took my kids, handed them off to her. She flew them back to California, and I haven't seen them since. And this was September 29th, 2021. And I made a few more attempts to vindicate my rights in the family court, and it just got worse. It just got worse and worse. More ex parte frauds, no right to cross-examine, no right to discovery. At some point, Hendrickson labeled me a vexatious litigant, and then I got her in so much trouble for that. She rescinded her order and admitted she denied me due process. I have a video about that up on my YouTube channel. And so I've stayed out of that family court, and at this point, I have now sued almost everybody in the Attorney General's office. I've sued those Clark County School District police officers. I've sued a bunch of officers at Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I've sued Steve Wolfson and his underling because after I was arrested,
why'd they go through your trunk?
Oh, they were taking pictures of everything. They also confiscated my firearm at this arrest, and they kept it for a year without a warrant.
So they're going through your, no warrants for any of this, right? You committed no crime.
No warrants, no Nevada warrants, no Nevada judge signed off on any of this. And so I think this might be a good place to show that Supreme Court video if you're willing. My comments. And I'll just tell people what this is, basically, is I made my own luck. I found out that the Supreme Court was having a administrative meeting about a rule change that they wanted to make. And so I decided to show up and give them a piece of my mind and put them on notice.
Michael Sternberg, I was born and raised.
There we go. Had to cue it up there. Okay. So go finish what you were saying there. I was just getting ready.
The goal of this was to cut through all the bureaucracy because the state bar, of course, is impeding and obstructing and covering up, just like everybody else, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to show up at this meeting and I'm going to demand the right to speak, and I'm going to get this video, and that's what I did. And the marshals there were very nice. They didn't make it easy. Right. The Supreme Court did not make it easy to get this video. We can talk about that in a minute. They were hiding it from me because the marshals wouldn't let me record on my own. Right. But I went there to tell these Supreme Court justices, hey, this is what's going on. Your bar is refusing to investigate and is covering up. You need to look into this. And this has 50,000 views on my YouTube channel so far. So go ahead and Let's let everybody see what I said.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Sternberg. I was born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada. I went to Clark High School.
Let me interrupt you for, I'm sorry, sir. Could you spell your last name for us, please?
Sternberg, Stern as in November, B as in boy, ERG.
All right, thank you, sir. You can go ahead.
You're welcome. So I'm a military veteran with several honorable discharges. I went to Clark High School. I now run the YouTube channel at Father in Exile, where I am documenting the complete dysfunction of the Nevada and California judiciaries. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, specifically my history with my family law case and what's been going on and how it might apply to this topic at hand. So in 2019, my children were abducted by their ex from Las Vegas and taken to California. I immediately filed a case here in the family court in Clark County, which was before Judge Rhonda Forsberg. She ceded jurisdiction to California based on ex parte frauds. That video is up on my YouTube channel. In 2021, after more ex parte frauds in the California family court, Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford falsely arrested me on a California warrant that he knew had been obtained by fraud. My children were seized. I have never seen them since. It's been over 4 years. I've never had any kind of trial whatsoever, no due process rights. After I was arrested on this foreign warrant, I went through the Clark County or the Las Vegas Justice Court extradition court hearing where they don't follow any rules of due process or constitutional rights whatsoever. Because I refused to waive extradition, Judge Eric Goodman would not let me out on bail. And so you've created a situation here in Las Vegas where you have two tracks. If you're a Nevada citizen and you're arrested on Nevada charges, you get mandatory bail except for a few extenuating circumstances or extreme violations. But if you're a Nevada citizen and you're arrested on a foreign warrant, you get no bail. That's their perspective here. I've since sued Judge Eric Goodman in federal court, and he was not able to escape. And I'm going to tell you more about that in a second. In order to keep me in jail for 2 weeks, the district attorney had to file a criminal complaint. So Deputy DA Caroline Morales filed a false sworn criminal complaint against me, alleging that I fled from justice from the state of California. I sued her in federal court too. She's lost her immunity. Steve Wolfson has lost his immunity. Where's the state bar? The evidence is published on my Substack at Father in Exile. Where's the state bar? They're absent and they're impeding as usual, which is why I've sued them in federal court too. And I'm running out of time, so I want to make sure you know about that. The state bar, specifically Dan Hooge or Dan Hoogie, or however he says his name, and the private attorney that they're using for they're paying taxpayer resources to defend my lawsuit, have both been running around claiming that they are a private entity and not under the jurisdiction of the Nevada Supreme Court. Justices, you need to look into that. They need to be fired immediately. They were so incompetent that they defaulted on my federal lawsuit. So I'm out of time, but I would definitely love the opportunity to talk to your staff about what's been going on and the complete and total dysfunction in the Nevada judiciary. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Sternberg, thank you for coming today. I appreciate it.
So that was November 5th. Wow. Yeah, November 5th, 2025. Do you think Dan Hoagie is how you say his name? Do you think he's been fired yet from the state bar? I don't think he's been fired.
Oh, he got a promotion, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I filed a couple bar complaints in my cases, and you know what came back? We're not going to investigate. You need to sue people, basically, is what the state bar tells you.
You need to do what?
I need to sue them. They're not going to do anything.
But you know what the Nevada Supreme Court rules say? Just the same thing as the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department policy. You shall take a report. The state Supreme Court rules say you shall investigate. But does the bar do an investigation? No, they just do whatever the hell they want, and they bury stuff, and they refuse to investigate, right? And
that's what all these government agencies do. It's not just the state bar; it's the ethics commission. It's all of them. It's the attorney generals, like you're doing. The attorney general does nothing.
Yep. So let me summarize my case. People. Yeah, let me summarize my cases for you, and then you can decide where you want the rest of this conversation to go. But the way that the reason the state bar got sued initially is because they started deleting my comments on LinkedIn when I called them out. Right. And so I actually gave them a chance to fix it. I said, hey, you just violated well-established First Amendment law. You cannot delete my comments. So, this is what I want. And I asked for like an apology and and for them to identify who was going to do it and whatever. Now, this is after they already subverted and covered up my complaints. And I still wasn't mentally prepared to go after them. Right. Well, Dan Hoagie responds to my email demand, my demand email. He replies all, because I also copied I sent it to Kimberly Farmer, who's the director of the State Bar of Nevada. And I copied a couple other people. I forgot who they were, but he replies all. And I think this was an accident. He didn't realize I was going to get a copy of this. And he basically lays out his argument for why my threat is empty. And he basically says, we are a private entity and we are not under the jurisdiction, of the Constitution, basically. Right. And I'm like, oh, you just kicked up a hornet's nest. So I replied all, and I said, hey, guess what? Not only does state law say that you are, but the Ninth Circuit has already ruled on this and said that the State Bar of California is an arm of the state. So congratulations, you're now getting sued. And so, and at the same time, Aaron Ford actually blocked me on LinkedIn. So here's a summary, a big field of view of my lawsuits, and then you can tell me where you want this conversation to go and how much time you have. I'm okay on time, but I know we originally talked about an hour, so I'll just take your lead.
I'm good as long as much story as you got to tell. That's what I want to get out there, is how screwed up this whole thing is from the very top, the Attorney General of the state of Nevada, all throughout the system, all throughout the courts, all throughout the judges, because I experience the same thing as you experience. It's so screwed up that when you go file a complaint, there is no accountability for anybody in government. They're all protected.
Yes. And you know what? I was on the Veterans in Politics talk show a couple weeks ago, and I said this analogy, and I actually do believe it. I'm basically viewing this like Jenga, the game Jenga. And I'm going to just keep pulling pieces, and I'm going to keep pulling pieces. And, I was in the military for a long time. I was in the infantry. I don't give up, right? I'm just going to keep pulling pieces. At some point, something's going to come crashing down. But it is quite absurd how many pieces I've already pulled out. And the fact that this is still standing is just kind of unbelievable, right? So my first lawsuit was filed, my federal civil rights lawsuit was filed less than 2 years after that false arrest. And so I stripped Aaron Ford, his deputy, CJ Brady, his world famous investigator, Chief Scott, who got fired because of that traffic stop.
Thank God you shared it. I shared it. It got on some of the shorts that I shared. I got 100,000 plus views in the shorts.
That's fabulous to hear.
Thank God he's God.
Karma. So an interesting note about him. So before I sued Ford and all that, I worked my way up to CJ Brady, who's his second in command, Deputy Attorney General, right? I got her on the phone and I said, hey, your dirtbags have my firearm. They've had it for a year without a warrant. I want it back. And why are you refusing to investigate all the felonies that have gone on? And so she says, I will order them to give you your firearm back, and which they did. And that video is up on my YouTube. I got undercover video of the walk of shame that they had to do. But she also asked me to file a complaint online. Yep, that's her. That's her. So she asked me to file a complaint on their website about her staff, about Chief Scott, William Scott, Dave Monroe, Gina Lavero. And so I did. I filed a complaint. And I said, these people knowingly falsely arrested me. They stole my firearm for a year without a warrant. They refused to investigate the abduction of my children. So I filed this complaint at her request, right? What happens? A couple weeks later, William Scott calls me on the phone and he identifies himself. And I said, why are you calling me? And he goes, because you filed that complaint. And I said, yeah, but I complained about you. I don't want to talk to you. And he goes, I investigated myself and I've determined I did nothing wrong. And I'm like, well, again, you're a dirtbag and I complained about you, so I don't want to talk to you. And I hung up the phone. So interesting side note there. So, yep, there he is, Chief Scott.
That's the guy that yeah.
Yep.
What I find interesting about this guy right here is he's buddies with somebody that I've been fighting with for a long time. Let's see if I can go down here and find it. Anyways, he was this guy that you helped get fired, was high up in Nevada government. And what I'm finding about Nevada government is you've got all these people that are interlinked together. And this guy, anyways, I'm not going to go too much further down into this, but this guy is linked to another guy named J.D. Decker. And J.D. Decker is the police chief of the state of Nevada DMV. Now, don't ask me why we need a police force for the DMV, but they're all kind of buddies together. And what I'm finding these people do is they all go around and they thrust their weight around, and they're these privileged, in my opinion, assholes. And they think that they don't stink, but we all do. Anyways, that's just my rant. So sorry to interrupt.
No, it's a great rant because
going.
it's a great rant because you just reminded me of something that I don't know if you know about. Do you know who Sean Bowen is?
Sean Bowen. Let's search that name up here.
Here, let me tell you exactly what to search for. Search for Sean. I think it's SHWN. Bowen, BOWEN. Review Journal and Funeral.
If I can type this one here, State Radio Funeral Home.
I don't see it on your screen. I still see Chief Scott.
Forget which screen I'm on half the time.
I'm sorry. I see former Chief Scott on your screen.
This right here.
Yep.
That investigators.
Yep. Click on that because you should look.
Oh,
into this.
that's a nice picture to see right there.
Yeah, you should look into this. Like, people will not believe how twisted our government is. So this article is about Sean Bowen, who got in trouble for his side business, even though he's an attorney general agent, right? This is way back in the day. I don't remember what year this is, but back in the day. What year is that? 2017?
2017, yeah.
Okay. This government grift goblin has been around forever as an attorney general agent, right? He got in trouble for his side business with the funeral home. That's the guy that just got promoted to replace Chief Scott after Chief Scott got fired.
Oh, wow. Attorney General. Let's see what pops up with that in there. Sean Bowen. Sean joined ISU April of 2025. It's Idaho State University. There's no picture.
Yeah, but the reason I know that he replaced Scott is because I went down to the Attorney General's office and started interrogating people after Scott was fired. That's up on my YouTube channel too. I recommend people. That's got like tens of thousands of views. And so Thomas, Investigator Thomas, who's the guy that gave me my firearm back after a year, he told me on camera that Sean Bowen replaced William Scott as the chief investigator.
Yeah, it's all incestuous. They all know each other.
Yep.
So I don't know if you were watching the last special session with the state of Nevada where they, I don't know what the emergency was still with Assembly Bill 5 and getting Hollywood to Las Vegas and all the other garbage they were doing. But what I was watching with this whole thing is you've got this group of people. It doesn't matter what the party is. They vote with each other. And then you've got the other groups that's kind of against that. So it's not all about the party. It's all about which other little group you're in that seems like it's going to go benefit all these special causes. At least that's what I'm seeing in this whole thing. So whether it's, the attorney general, the governor, whether it was Sisolak or the current one, they're all interrelated. And they've all had these relationships for decades between each other. And they all seem to work together to get things done that aren't necessarily in interest of the people of Nevada. From the top to the bottom.
Yep. My Senator Scheibel, unless I'm mistaken, in my recollection, she used to be a lawyer in Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson's office. So, yep. It's very incestuous, and we don't really have any checks and balances. If we had checks and balances, then Senator Scheibel would at least call me back to talk about me stripping Aaron Ford's immunity. Now, she may disagree. Well, actually, it's not even up to her because she's in the Senate. But let's just say, she could hook me up with my assembly person, or who is a Jaeger, of course, right? Or they could work together to figure out, is it worth it to do articles of impeachment? Are articles of impeachment legitimate in this case, right? But they don't even call me back. No. I even at the beginning of the start of the last legislative session, I called Scheibel, and I called in to do public comments at her first committee meeting as chairwoman of the Judiciary Committee, and I just embarrassed the hell out of her in front of her committee. That's got tens of thousands of views on my YouTube too, and they just don't care. Like they're just out to, it's like, nobody's ever gonna, I'm gonna keep winning the vote. Nobody's gonna recall me. I can just do whatever the hell I want. It doesn't matter, and so there are no checks and balances. There really aren't, I'm proceeding. So we were talking about my 3 lawsuits, and I'm not making a secret about this. Like the main motivation, no amount of money is going to give me time back with my kids. So
Nope.
At this point, the main motivation is video depositions so that the public can see how these people truly are,
That's
And so
that's where you and I are the same, is try to show what's happening out there so people can solve the problem. But the more of the Jenga pegs that you pull away, we still haven't got the problem solved yet. So we just got to have more and more people like you, me, and people watching, pulling more of those Jenga pegs out so that there's accountability.
yeah, I don't know if it'll ever be solved. But what I will tell you is the one immediate win that I had with my federal civil rights lawsuits is that all of this fraud and the false arrests and all that stopped, like immediately, especially right after they lost immunity. Like nobody's trying to arrest me anymore. Nobody's concocting fake criminal cases. My ex has hundreds of thousands, I think, of dollars of fake child support and sanctions money judgments against me, that they could be trying to beat me over the head with. But all of that ceased as soon as I filed federal lawsuits, and so that was an immediate win for me personally, and so I am going to try to encourage others, and that's why I went on that Veterans in Politics talk show, was to talk specifically about that. You need to be filing federal civil rights lawsuits immediately, like the second your rights are violated, because there are quick benefits to it, even though it may not seem like it's a fair process and it may seem corrupt and all that. It did put an immediate stop to false arrests, me being hauled into that family court. Because even me being hauled into that family court, that's $1,000 a pop for me, which is devastating, right? Because there's no court reporter. So that means if I go in there, I have to pay a court reporter $1,000 to show up.
Yeah.
So every time they do some kind of fraudulent thing, it costs me $1,000. Well, all of that stopped with the federal civil rights lawsuits. So,
Yeah.
So let me give you a brief overview of the lawsuits, and then you can tell me what you want to talk about. But so the first one, I stripped Aaron Ford and all of his goons of immunity. I stripped Steve Wolfson of immunity because, so going back to that real quick, in order to keep me in jail for those 2 weeks, as I mentioned in those Supreme Court comments, they had to file a criminal complaint against me. Well, his underling, Caroline Morales, filed a false sworn criminal complaint against me, alleging that I fled from the state of California. I fled from justice from the state of California. Well, that's the one boo-boo she made when it comes to absolute prosecutorial immunity, because they are totally immune from anything that they do in court. Prosecutors are, no matter how malicious, no matter how illegal, they are immune, except unless they lie under oath. Because if you lie under oath, you have switched from being an advocate or a lawyer to being a witness. And so you lose your prosecutorial immunity when you do that. And so that's how I stripped her and Wolfson of their immunity. On some of these others, like they got a dismissal, they got their motions to dismiss granted, but I was granted leave to amend to fix it, which is the standard in federal court. Like, don't be afraid to represent yourself in federal court, because you can always fix things. And we're going to amend the complaint anyway. So whatever deficiencies they were when it came to Metro, which I beat Metro's motion to dismiss mostly too. But whatever deficiencies there were will be fixed on amendment. So I have not amended my complaint yet, because we are waiting to hammer out one issue, which is the Rooker-Feldman issue, which I actually took up on appeal. And this is bizarre. So I filed a motion for preliminary injunction right in the beginning of the case, because I knew that it was immediately appealable. So if this federal judge, Judge Gordon, did anything that I thought was crazy, I would have another avenue right away, right, with an immediate appeal. So it didn't exactly turn out the way that I thought. He ruled in my favor numerous times, but on the preliminary injunction, he made a really bad mistake with Rooker-Feldman, and it was very flippant. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and escalate this to an appeal. So I filed the appeal. The one sole single
What did it cost you to file the appeal?
$600.
600. Did you have to pay for a transcript?
No, because they're here.
So you were in front of the magistrate judge, not the district judge.
No. First of all, just so you have full understanding of what I'm doing, I do not consent to the magistrate on anything.
Oh, okay.
Now, that does not prevent the magistrate from issuing stupid orders. She does it all the time. Her name is Magistrate Judge Yucha, and she refuses to deal with professional misconduct, which we can talk about at another time. But she issues stupid orders all the time. If the order is something that is stupid and I don't want to deal with it, then I immediately file an objection. You can file an objection to the magistrate orders and force the district judge to deal with it. And that's what I routinely do with her. So,
Okay.
but that's not, so the reason why we don't have transcripts is we don't have any hearings. Now, your case, what I think is going on in your case is because you had a TRO hearing, you had to deal with some evidence, and that might be why you had an actual hearing. But I've never had a hearing.
Actually, just getting the transcript cost me, what, $350 to get the transcript.
Yeah. I've never had a hearing in Las Vegas. Everything is going on the papers.
So I'm figuring if I had to file anything for an appeal like you did, I'd spend the $600 like you did plus the transcript. So you're in that $1,000 no matter what you do on that too.
Yes. Well,
I'm just adding up the cost of the absurdity of trying to get something resolved that should be fairly simple.
Exactly. And I'm trying to be, very mindful about preserving resources as I do. I basically view myself as like the Viet Cong in this situation, like I'm doing guerrilla warfare here. So I very cognizant of not getting myself into a situation again where I spend $150,000 on bullshit, excuse my language.
Yeah, me too.
So at any rate, I filed that appeal and I asked the judge to stay the case until we get a decision on that. And he agreed. And I said, I can't amend the complaint efficiently until we get a decision on this issue, because this issue is one where, if I lose on the issue, then I can't include it in an amended complaint. But if I win, then I can. So we have to get clarity on Rooker-Feldman, which is an obscure doctrine we can talk about later. But anyway, so I filed the appeal. Everybody briefed. Everybody agreed that de novo was the correct legal standard. So de novo means that the appellate court has to start from the beginning with no deference to the judge's orders and make sure that everything was done correctly, both legally and on the evidence, right? So all parties agreed for Rooker-Feldman that the case law says that de novo is the correct standard. What does the Ninth Circuit do? Well, these low-life justices, Johnstone, Graber, and H.A. Thomas, after 4 months of sitting on it, they issue a decision where they say, we review for abuse of discretion, which is the wrong legal standard, right? And then they just made something up out of thin air. And basically what they said was that I did not prove up the winter factors, which are the 4 factors that a court has to decide if it's going to issue a preliminary injunction. And why do I say that they made that up out of thin air? Because in order to make that claim that I didn't prove up the winter factors, somebody would actually have to analyze the winter factors, and nobody did that. The lower judge didn't do that because he dismissed on Rooker-Feldman, which was a jurisdictional thing. So he never even got to looking at the winter factors. And they didn't look at the winter factors either, right? So they just made this up out of thin air. So then I filed a petition for rehearing en banc, and they sat on it for many more months. And then they said, no, we're not changing our decision. And then not a single judge, not a single taxpayer defrauding judge in the Ninth Circuit, and there's more than 20 of them, could even lift a finger to call for an en banc vote to see if the majority of the justices wanted to look at this. So I'm a little aghast, honestly, about how bad that makes them, like the fact that they would walk into that and just willingly look that corrupt is unbelievable. So they used the wrong legal standard. They made something up out of thin air. I brought it to their attention in a petition for a rehearing. They refused to fix it. And then not a single judge called for an en banc vote. So my solution after that, I have two choices. I can go to the Supreme Court, which they're not likely to hear it, or I can go on a motion for reconsideration right back in front of the lower judge, which is exactly what I did. So
Good.
to add insult to injury, right? Right after they issued the first denial in my preliminary injunction appeal, the Ninth Circuit, like literally the next month, they issued a published decision called Neroth versus Trinity County that articulated that all of my positions on Rooker-Feldman were exactly correct. So it's
Neroth?
Neroth, Miroth versus Trinity County.
Trinity. Let's see what pops up there.
So they denied my appeal using the wrong legal standard and making something up out of thin air. And then a month later, in a different case, issued a published decision saying that all my arguments were correct. Yeah, County of Trinity, that's the one. And that's another, that's basically like another CPS case that anybody that's having issues with CPS, they need to go look at that case. That talks about lying dirtbag, government workers lying to a court in order to kidnap kids. So everybody needs to read that case that has any issues along those lines. So anyway, you're allowed to do a motion for a reconsideration of an interlocutory order. Interlocutory means like, temporary order, not a final order. You're allowed to do that in federal court for three reasons. One is new evidence, one is new law, and the other one is clear and unmistakable error. And so I'm like, okay, well, we have the new law because they just came out with that case, right? So I put it right in front of him as a motion for reconsideration, which is pending right now. I cited that Maroth case as the new law. The new evidence is the anti-SLAPP motion reconsideration that he ruled on in my favor after he denied this preliminary injunction. So what happened is my ex, Shelley, and her dirtbag attorney, Mark Randazza, who's been disciplined, by the way, not only by the State Bar of Nevada, but the State Bar of California and several other state bars, right? He's representing her in federal court. They filed a frivolous anti-SLAPP motion against my lawsuit, my federal lawsuit, on my state law claims, and the judge granted it to them. So I filed a motion for reconsideration on that. I gave the judge a bunch of evidence, and to his credit, he said, "You're right. I rescind the prior granting of the anti-SLAPP, and you win." So, well, that was a summary judgment standard, basically. He was looking at evidence for that. And he found that a reasonable jury could conclude that Shelley Warnock, my ex, and her dirtbag attorney, family lawyer in California, Tristan Ashelman, that they defrauded courts in order to kidnap my children.
So remember the other day when you and I were talking and I mentioned, hey, I think there's a $10,000 issue here.
Yeah.
So this isn't obviously the NRS. Go read the NRS, but you can see right here, courts may award an additional $10,000 in damages to the defendant.
Yeah, I don't remember that specific dollar amount, but obviously if I had let that anti-SLAPP win go, they do get mandatory attorney's fees. And in fact, they demanded them. They demanded $18,000 from me. So I told him to F off, and I filed a motion for reconsideration, and then I won.
Good.
Right? And so that was the new evidence. All the evidence that was in that motion, that's the new evidence that I want the judge to look at in terms of the preliminary injunction. And I realized I forgot to tell everybody what was the preliminary injunction. I was asking the court to enjoin Aaron Ford and Steve Wolfson from maliciously using the criminal justice system to again come after me and falsely arrest me based on secret void family court orders out of California. That's the preliminary injunction that I'm asking for. So that's the new evidence, was the anti-SLAPP granting and the motion that I filed to get it. And then the clear and unmistakable error is in his order denying the preliminary injunction. He cited a case that actually helped me. Like, he cited page 5, but if he had gone to page 6, he would have seen that he could have done exactly what I asked. So that's pending before him right now. And in the meantime, the case is stayed, right, for a judicial efficiency. Because although it's a preliminary injunction reconsideration, I also asked him to reconsider some of his partial grants of dismissal on Rooker-Feldman, and I cannot amend the complaint until we get some clarity on that. And so that's partially stayed, and it was at my request, and so that's to keep my workload under control. So then he actually also dismissed several California defendants for lack of personal jurisdiction. And so I opened a new federal lawsuit in San Francisco against all these California judges, including Hayashi, Hendrickson, Kuhnle, all the ones that you brought up on the screen. A bunch of goons at the State Bar of California who do the same thing the State Bar of Nevada does. They refuse to investigate. They bury evidence. They hide investigations. So I sued a bunch of them. I sued San Jose, the city. I sued Santa Clara County. I sued El Dorado County. I sued City of South Lake Tahoe. So that's all going on in the San Francisco federal court. Same thing. I filed a motion for preliminary injunction in that court. What did I ask the federal judge to do? I asked her to order the CEO of the Santa Clara County Superior Court, Rebecca Fleming, and presiding judge Julie Emity. I asked her to order them to give me my family court file. So this is going back to absurdity, right? Shelley and Tristan have free remote access to the family court file. I have no access to the family court file. And I've already caught him filing different versions of stuff than he served on me. And they have been refusing for years to give me access to my own court file. So I asked the federal judge to order them to do it. She denied the injunction. Why did she deny the injunction? Because she dismissed these judiciary defendants on erroneous grounds. So now that's all up on appeal. And then the third case is the social media case. And so the State Bar of Nevada defendants, they initially tried a frivolous motion to dismiss, and I embarrassed the heck out of them. And then what they basically did is they spent a bunch of money and time writing this motion to dismiss, right? Well, under the federal rules, you get one free amendment to your complaint where you can just amend and you don't need anybody's permission. So they filed their motion to dismiss. The next day I filed I filed a new complaint under that rule. And they ended up defaulting, because I was also filing a temporary restraining order asking the court to tell them, do not delete my comments on LinkedIn anymore. And also asking Aaron Ford, or ordering Aaron Ford to unblock me on LinkedIn, right? And they spent so much time trying to frivolously defend that, where Ethan Featherstone, who's the attorney that represents the bar, was once again claiming that the bar is a private entity and not under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, right? He was so busy trying to defraud the federal court with that he defaulted on the amended complaint. And so I don't know what's going on with that case right now, because I filed for the TRO in July and I filed a motion for default in July. And this court under this judge, this is Judge Navarro, just cannot get itself together. They're just sitting on it. And so I may file a motion this week, be like, hey, you want to pull your heads out of your butts and do something so we can figure out the next step. But so that's where we're at with the three cases. And then, my oldest is 16. His younger brother is a year younger. I'm doing everything I can to get back to in seeing them, but I am not going into that family court because there's just no point. I don't get due process, and it just makes things worse. So I'll leave it at that and take your lead on where you want to go with this.
Like I said, I spent 15 years in family court, and the end of my decision came in 2017 when I got a call from CPS saying that they'd taken my kids from their mom because mom was going to the rubber room for 10 days. And that was, when I started to have the relationship back with my kids and all that good stuff. And it was a really sad story in all. And your story is what mine kind of was. My son was 17. It was when I got custody of him. He had 4 months until he turned 18. All that I can say is what I do know is my kids are grateful that I fought. Your kids should be great. I can only presume, will be grateful that you fought. And then once they're to a point in life where they can make their own decisions, it just sucks you had to miss everything in between there. That's the really sad part.
Yeah. and I try to stay compartmentalized on this too. Like,
Oh, I'll cry. I cry all the time now, man.
uh, there are some really awful things that are happening to other people in this system. And I don't want to talk too much about them because I want to keep my composure. But, as bad as what my ex has done to me and to our boys is, I, I worry about their safety in the sense that she got the DUI with the kids in the car. But, they're in a metropolitan area that's reasonably safe. I have ways of keeping tabs on things so that I know what's going on, obviously. And unfortunately, Aaron Ford's choice to point guns at me and my children and other people's children in 2021, like that is now the main threat to their safety. So I have to do what I can to avoid government agents pointing guns at me and my kids. That's my chief concern versus other safety concerns that other parents who are going through much worse and much more horrible things have to deal with. So I'm strategizing and pursuing my justice and going after these institutions in a way that does not escalate the risk for my boys. And unfortunately, I feel like I can do that, versus what other parents are going through where, children are being abused or whatever.
Yep. Nope. There's always something worse than what you got to deal with. It just sucks that you got to deal with what you got to deal with.
Yep.
That's kind of what I figured out in my life. There's, you see people and everybody's got their own life struggles. You never know what somebody's going through until you actually sit down and deal with them. But even then, you're just trying to understand everybody's perspective is their own. And I don't know what I'm trying to say with that.
Well, but I do want to say, because you talk about fixing things. And so, I'm going after the institutions. Like I said, I think the main thing at this point is exposure. And so that's video depositions. That's me showing up at the Nevada Supreme Court like I did so that citizens can see what's really going on, right? Yeah. That's one thing. There are things that I would like to see systemically changed, which would be nice to get people on board with. So one example, some things I can accomplish on my own. So for example, I can challenge state laws as unconstitutional in my federal lawsuit. And maybe I win some of that, and that solves some small problems. A big problem I think that we have is I think we need a change in our Constitution that says, hey, I know everybody in the government's confused when it says that the right to a jury is inviolate forever. So let's rehash that and make sure it's absolutely clear. You cannot put somebody in jail without a jury. Yeah. Like the system that we have. Yeah, this system that we have right now, where a judge can put you in jail for 6 months or less, and you don't get a jury on that, for misdemeanor crimes, that to me is outrageous, given the clarity of our Constitution. Now, my understanding, and I haven't gone back and studied it in a while, but it's the same kind of thing under the federal Constitution, where they tried to claim basically that, well, it was always understood that the right to a jury was only 6 months or more in jail. Right. And so even though the language of our Constitution says the right to a jury is inviolate forever, that's not really what they meant. What they meant is as long as it's 6 months or more in jail. Right. So I think we need to change to the Constitution to strip a lot of these judges of their power. That is, I think something that should be a top priority for Nevada citizens. Like, you need another check there, and the check is the jury. And Chili DeCastro, right? Like,
yeah, I've been watching him too. I mean, his whole thing, he was almost 6 months in just for
an appeal, right? And this is the problem.
Appeal, yeah.
Love him or hate him, right? He was put in jail because one judge that didn't like him had the power to do it. And my point of view as a Nevada citizen who's born here is that is outrageous. Right.
Well, they ignored the Constitution. That's the problem, is they ignore the Constitution, basic words.
Yeah. So I think we need an amendment that says, no, this means a right to a jury means family court in civil trials. You get a jury if we're going to do this family court nonsense. And in criminal trials, you cannot put somebody in jail, period, without a jury. You cannot convict somebody of a crime without a jury. And, you know, that's one systemic thing that I think, you know, it would be nice to see the population get around. You know, I don't know why somebody would oppose that other than being a bootlicker. You know, and part of what you and I are doing is making sure that we can enlighten bootlickers that
Yeah.
maybe that maybe these our superiors are not as superior as they make themselves out to be.
The people that run our government get dressed the same way we do, sit down in the toilet and do what they do the same way. They're the same as we are. They just have special powers that we don't have. They've got special exclusions that we don't have.
Yeah.
There's a two-tier system that was never supposed to be.
Yeah.
And the people are not in control. The bureaucrats are.
Yeah.
And
And
the bureaucrats protect it all.
it's a big problem. And that, you know, that's why part of what I'm doing too is trying to learn lessons in federal court that I can teach others.
Yeah.
And so, like I mentioned in that Veterans in Politics talk show about suing a judge right away, right? Like you can't sue money for money, but you can get declaratory relief. If a state judge is violating your federal rights, you can get a declaration from a federal judge that says that. And then if the state judge continues to violate your rights, you can get an injunction against that state judge. And so that's all under the Civil Rights Statute, 42 USC 1983. And I would love to see more people who are being victimized by state government use the federal courts. It's not going to be easy. You know, there's going to be frustration. One of my frustrations is that there's rampant attorney misconduct that's clogging the docket, so you can't get answers on anything anytime soon. You know, but the more of us that do that, and the more of us that expose it, you know, maybe it'll affect a change. Somebody says that's what the FBI and DOJ is. Yeah, they have failed. They're a bunch of taxpayer defrauders too. You know, I took Aaron Ford's immunity a year ago. You know, what does it mean when you take somebody's immunity on a motion to dismiss, right? What does that mean? What that means is that if everything I say is true, then under federal law, they are liable to me and they have no immunity. So the question is everything I'm saying true? And the FBI could figure that out in 2 seconds, but they refuse to investigate. You know, they just hide in their palace on Lake Mead Boulevard, because I've been trying with them for 2 years too. You know, going back to that National Guard stuff that I told you about, I had a relationship with inside the FBI in Las Vegas because I reported all of that to them. And an agent from the FBI in Las Vegas actually sat down with me and I showed them the evidence and everything. And they put together a whole report and they said, yep, this is an issue. But his superiors made him transfer the investigation to San Francisco FBI because that's where the National Guard was, the California Guard. And they killed it, right? So, but I already had that relationship. So when my kids were abducted, I reached out to him and I was inside the walls at Lake Mead Boulevard reporting civil rights violations and crimes. They don't care. They don't care, you know? And so they just, and nothing's changed with the new administration. You know, like, let's leave it with this. You know, not only was my firearm taken for a year without a warrant by Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford, but Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department stole my concealed carry permit. And what they said was, they said, you're a prohibited possessor because you've been indicted for felonies. And I'm like, do you guys have two brain cells you can run together? There's no way that a federal law says that I'm a prohibited possessor because I've been indicted. You have to wait till I've been convicted, right? And not to mention the fact that you know that the indictment was based on fraud, right? And it was not even an indictment. It was an information. It was a charge from a prosecutor, right, who did it by fraud. So at any rate, they revoked my permit. So now I am challenging that gun law as unconstitutional. It's 18 USC 922N, which basically says that if you're under felony information or indictment, you shall not receive a firearm involved in interstate commerce, something like that. So I'm challenging that law as unconstitutional because, of course, you know, if somebody has not been convicted of anything, you have no right to be impeding on their 2A rights. And because I am challenging that law as unconstitutional, the Department of Justice has a lawyer in my case. So
Are they fighting against it, or are they trying to help you get
no, they're
it
just sitting
overturned?
and watching right now because we're the case is stayed, right? But my point is that this DOJ attorney is receiving all of the filings in the case. So she knows about all of the rulings against Aaron Ford, all of the rulings against the police. She knows about the summary judgment rulings and the evidence, right? So not only is it me trying to report this stuff to the FBI, but now it's in a public docket that is being served on a DOJ lawyer. And they are still protecting kidnapper and thief Aaron Ford. And they are still protecting dirtbag DA Steve Wolfson, whose subordinate lied to keep me in jail for 2 weeks and for which he's done nothing about, right? So the feds are unfortunately no better than the state government, and it doesn't matter that we have a President Trump or any of these new people. And you know what? Back in the day when it was when I was reporting this National Guard stuff, that was 2015, right? So I've been through, and then I was in the military. I was on active duty from 1996 to 2000, right? It has never changed. There is never checks and balances. There's never accountability. You know, every once in a while they pick off some easy pickings, you know, low level guy, but there is just never systemic accountability. So the best we can do is what I think is what we're doing, which is documenting for the public how these people behave. And then at some point, the public's going to have to decide if it's going to do anything.
Yep. Well, that's I never wanted to run for office. The only reason I'm running for office is it's just a whole part of the progression of file the lawsuits, see what happens, try to make change there. Take a camera out, record and see what the government does. Don't let them do anything that you're not recording. When they screw up, show what happens. Try to make change at the most basic level, mitigate, go to the elected people at the city level, the county level, the state level. Those people don't change anything. Tell the supervisors of these people that do these things, it doesn't change anything. So what's the next step after you go to the courts? Well, try to run for office and see if you can make some laws and change some things.
Or at least cause some trouble. Like you could put in some articles of impeachment against Aaron Ford. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't go anywhere, right? But at least the public gets to see that, hey, this allegation's been made. There's been some evidence, right? And the legislature is at least looking at it.
Yeah, but the problem is the legislature doesn't look at it.
Exactly.
So you go file the complaint. It's just like the complaint that I filed with Aaron Ford's office. Sorry, my dog's barking. Hey, you go file the complaint about being illegally arrested and hotboxed on a 95-degree day in the back of a police car, left back there with all the windows rolled up, pouring sweat. You go complain to the Attorney General's office that, hey, a cop did this to me. It's on video. And they lose the complaint. Well, just file another one. But it's like you mentioned specifically, you filed your lawsuits within 2 years. There's a statute of limitations on a lot of things. Unless you file in a timely manner, you can't file, or you've got to fight to file after that. So if you don't do something in 2 years after these events happen, and the government just kind of keeps pushing them aside, then that statute of limitations rolls around. You got no recourse for anything, and nothing changes.
Yeah. Well, and also you have to do it yourself. I mean, first of all, I couldn't even find, we have a few civil rights lawyers here in Las Vegas, and most of them are so busy suing the cops, like they don't have any bandwidth, right?
Yeah. And
so we have a dearth of civil rights lawyers. That's one problem. And then the other problem is that most lawyers are dumb. They're really dumb. Like I've spoken to hundreds of lawyers who have told me that I cannot do exactly what I've just done. Right. Yep. And so they have some perverted concept of the law and the Constitution and, and who knows. And so for some other person who's a victim of government wrongdoing, it's like, not only do you have to survive being a victim, but then you got to try to find a lawyer, and that's not easy to do because they're dumb, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's why I am, and let's leave it with this. That's why I'm working so hard to litigate every issue that I think is important, and also advertise to the world, like, this is what I got right, this is what I got wrong. Don't be afraid to make changes. Don't be afraid to ask to fix something. I mean, let's leave it right here. One of the great things that I did to answer all the motions to dismiss that I had to deal with, because I had to deal with a lot of those, is I just read all the cases that the dirtbags on the other side were citing. I've told you this before. They make all these frivolous arguments and then they cite cases, right? And I go and I read all the cases that they cite. And not only do the cases not say what they claim, they give a very clear picture that we have rights, right? That there are very few fatal mistakes in federal court, that the court is supposed to treat us with deference as pro se litigants, that as long as we're making a good faith effort to move the case forward, that they shouldn't be messing around with us, right? And so in digesting all of that material, it really helped with my mentality in terms of being in this for the long haul. So I'm going to be in this for the long haul. I'm going to continue to document everything for everyone. And I hope that others will take what I show and they will learn from it and they will go have their own successes. And a lot of people so far have already told me that they are in fact doing that. And so I'm very grateful to hear it.
Good. Well, I think we'll wrap it up then. And thanks for talking to me, Michael.
I appreciate the opportunity. And again, thank you for everything you're doing for Nevada.
You too. You're fighting down there. I'm fighting up here. Now we just need so everybody that's watching this stuff, go out if you got a few minutes, hold the government accountable. When you think they're screwing up, file a complaint, do something. Don't just let it slide. The more of us that do this, the more change we can make. And when you come around to election time, vote out the old guy, vote in the new guy or gal or however you want to be. The problem is the people that have been in there, the people that are staying there, they're the ones that are doing nothing to change the problems that we're all dealing with today. So that would be my advice. And try to pick people that have common sense over the party that they're running in. Or maybe they're nonpartisan. Pick them too. So that would be my thing. So again, thanks, Michael. I'm going to push the button, shut this thing down, and go from there. I'll talk to you later, and I'll send you some stuff.
Thank you so much, Drew. I really appreciate it.
Later.